अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। योऽन्तः प्रवेश मम वाचमिमां प्रक्षुब्धं सञ्जीवयत्यखिलशक्तिधरस्वधाम्ना अन्यंश्च हस्तचरणश्रवणात्वगादिं प्राणान्नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यम्। So today we'll start our forgiveness discussions. How to understanding what is forgiveness and why should there be forgiveness. So first we'll try to understand why we need to practice forgiveness. So I'll give you the reasons and then we'll understand what is forgiveness, and also we'll cover where to find forgiveness. So forgiveness is required because we live in a world with a lot of imperfections. What does that mean? It means that we will make some mistakes. And then it's nothing wrong to make mistakes. If we have not processed that mistake and we hold on to the consequence of that mistake, either it's the other person or yourself, that experience was not processed. So it has to be stored somewhere. And because we did the chitta cleanse, one of the emotions that many of us held was the emotion of guilt. Something we could have, should have, would have done, but we didn't do, and we didn't process it. So we feel guilty. Sometimes we may feel we were not the proper son we should have been, or the proper daughter we should have been. We could have been a better husband or a better wife, better boyfriend or a better girlfriend. Could be better mothers, better sisters, better brothers. So we have all these emotions that we could have been, should have been better, but unfortunately, we did not process that emotion. So that emotion builds up and it becomes an emotion of guilt. To carry, anyone here heard of this emotion called guilt? Anyone has guilt? Yeah. So this guilt, the emotion we carry, it is extremely heavy. It holds on to our ability. It stops the expression of our true ability to experience life and to try things that are new in our lives. And it blocks the normalcy in relationships. So understanding the importance of why we need to practice forgiveness is very, very important to the process of forgiveness. And a lot of the times when we do things without proper reasoning, then we also can acquire this emotion of guilt. So this is why we have to practice forgiveness. And practice forgiveness first is to oneself, because we let our emotions, our mind torture us for absolutely no reason, for uncountable numbers of years and months and lifetimes. When we go and get drunk at a party, when did we ask ourselves, is it okay for me to drink? Did we ever ask ourselves, is it okay for me to drink? Did we get permission of the self? Ourselves and give ourselves permission to drink? Did we ask ourselves and get permission from ourselves to be in toxic relationships because the mind was completely enamored and fascinated by something? So in this way, we have lived our lives without ever asking and getting permission from ourselves. And if you have destroyed yourself without getting permission from yourself, we have to first acknowledge to ourselves that we have not been nice and kind to ourselves. Extremely vital how much we have tortured ourselves, let our mind torture us, let our emotions torture us, let other people torture us. Guaranteed, if someone were to ask you, you know, can I slap you? You would say, please do not slap me. Can I mistreat you? Can I abuse you? If someone asks you those questions, you would immediately say, no, 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 you cannot do that. Why is it that we can torture ourselves and never ask for forgiveness to one's heart, to oneself? What right do we have to abuse ourselves without any permission? And to the extent where we're now suffering, this pain and suffering in our hearts and minds. So the first person we need to forgive is oneself for torturing ourselves years and years and years for something that we never gave permission to. So now we understand why we have to forgive ourselves, because we have never asked permission. And forgiveness means you ask for forgiveness means you don't do it again. That's what forgiveness means. So once we go through the process of forgiving ourselves, we have to make sure we ask permission to ourselves before we get into any kind of toxicity. Is that okay? We are all on the same page? Okay, so forgiving the self, very important. The second part is forgiveness that is connected to the most beloved person, the closest to your heart. The closest one is to you, the more you have caused them suffering and pain. For example, your mother and your father, or your lover, or your husband, or boyfriend, or girlfriend. We are the harshest towards them. Have you ever wondered why your boyfriend or your girlfriend is so nice to everyone else in the world, but is not so nice to you? It almost feels like there's two different people. They're nice to everybody, but when they come home behind closed doors, they're not so nice. Has anyone ever experienced that? Because this is the same scenario with us. We are nice and kind and loving towards everybody in the world. And we are the harshest person to ourselves. The people that are nicest to everyone in the world, secretly, they are so harsh and so heavy on themselves. They torture themselves. So it's the same principle. When you love someone, we tend to hurt them. When we trust someone, we drop our guards down. We tend to hurt them more. And also, their actions hurt us the most. For example, if your boyfriend or girlfriend went to dinner with someone else and didn't invite you, then we feel betrayed, we feel hurt, we feel devastated. The action was very, very small, but because the relationship was based on a very deep sense of trust. So therefore, the pain in that situation is very intense on both parties. Does that make sense? Okay. And then forgiveness from people that we may have unknowingly caused them hurt and pain, unknowingly, that you did not do it intentionally. It was an unintentional act. Has anyone experienced when you unintentionally hurt someone or unintentionally someone hurts you? So why do we need to forgive or be forgiven for something that we unintentionally do? Because what happens is when there is any kind of energy that is not naturally flowing between two people, there is a feeling of awkwardness and there is a feeling of uneasiness that is derived because the energy flow has been tainted. And that energy can grow, that negative energy can grow and grow and grow, and it can get quite big. Say, for example, Olivia sees me and I'm walking past and she's talking to Arjuna and she says, Arjuna, look, You know, these people with bald heads, you know, they're not the nicest people in the world. Olivia was not talking about me. She was just making a general statement. But I just happened to be, by circumstance, by situation, I just happened to be walking past. When I hear that from Olivia, my feelings get hurt. It had nothing to do with me, but just because I happened to be in that situation, my feelings are hurt, and my relationship with Olivia has just created a barrier. So what happened? My relationship with Olivia is now, no, there is an awkwardness. I just know that Olivia doesn't like me, and I can't truly give her my love because I know that she doesn't like people with bald heads. So this happens quite a lot in the world because we are naturally very opinionated and we speak from a place that is not always very uh, in the mode of goodness. It's a place of judgment. So therefore, we have isolated ourselves from many people, many acquaintances, many possible loving friendships and relationships. So these are the reasons why we need to always ask for forgiveness from oneself, from near and dear ones, and even for people that we have unknowingly hurt or
Donc
have
ça,
been hurt by our actions. Okay? Now we'll understand. First, we understood why we need to practice forgiveness. Because once you forgive yourself, you experience freedom. There is no freedom unless you learn to forgive yourself. So does that make sense? Why we need forgiveness? Okay, then we'll now understand what is forgiveness. And then I will go by step and step. Today I'm just going to give you a little bit more understanding why, what is forgiveness, and how is forgiveness practiced. That I will give you a practical step-by-step skills. So what is forgiveness? Forgiveness is the natural quality of every human being. It is called samanya dharma. Naturally, if you do something wrong, you can very easily forgive. When people say, I will never forgive this person, that is impossible. Even stone-like hearts can melt if we learn the art of forgiveness. So this forgiveness, the way it works is this. When we hold any grudge or emotions against another person, as soon as that person acknowledges what they have done and it's in sync with you, and there is an attitude of exchange of like, I have acknowledged, an acknowledgement of the mistakes they made, as soon as that acknowledgement has happened, you're immediately able to let it go. And then the next step comes in after acknowledgement is to personally be very detailed about what is the mistake that you have made. Very specific. For example, see if I go to Olivia's house and Olivia makes a very beautiful dinner for me, right? She makes 10 different items. Before I leave, I'll say, Olivia, dinner was so nice. Thank you very much. But if I stop and say, Olivia, remember the pesto sauce you made? It had the perfect amount of pine nuts. It had the perfect amount of basil and the olive oil and the tinctures, the flavors, the amount of salt. And I described the details of what I tasted in her cooking. So when I provide all the details, then Olivia really feels validated that Veda really, really ate my pesto pasta and he really enjoyed it. So we will learn the art. So when we go through the detailed process of asking for forgiveness, and then oftentimes we can free ourselves from the baggage that we are holding and they're holding in their heart. Does this make sense? Any of this make sense?
est-ce que ça a du sens?
Okay, so we learn why we need to ask for forgiveness. And in a nutshell, we discussed what is forgiveness. And so next session is going to be how to go step by step, how to ask for forgiveness to yourself and to everyone that in around you. So any questions on this? Why we need to ask for forgiveness and what is forgiveness? Please keep in mind, this is all so that you can experience freedom. So in this process of forgiveness, it is not something that happens overnight. It's not that you can just say, okay, Olivia, I forgive you, meaning like you forgive yourself and it's done. It is never a one-time sorry and it's over. Many times you will see people will say, people will say, Olivia, I've already said sorry. What is your problem? It just means that they have not been sincere in their seeking for forgiveness. They have to go through this process again of really winning your trust by begging for forgiveness again and again till it truly comes from the sincere space of their heart where you actually genuinely feel that they have acknowledged their mistake and they're genuinely seeking forgiveness. So please keep in mind, forgiveness is a process. It is not going to happen overnight. We have tortured ourselves for years and decades just to say, okay, Veda, I'm sorry to myself, isn't going to cut it. What it means is I have to first acknowledge what I have done to myself. So this acknowledgement takes time. I have been so cruel, did not sleep, give my body enough rest. I did not ask my permission to myself when I went to go and drink for 20 years of my life. I mean, I have never drank. I'm just giving you an example. Does that make sense? It is a process. It is not going to happen overnight, but we need to get into the process of understanding how we need to forgive ourselves. It's very, very, unless you forgive yourself, you are not going to find freedom. It's so simple. Yoga explains that you have to forgive yourself for the torture you have caused yourself. Let me ask you this. Has anyone ever asked themselves permission before they did anything? Raise your hand. So Anna has asked permission. Nice. Most people in this world don't ask permission from the self to do anything. They think that it's completely fine to go and do crazy daredevil things, go drink and party and be in toxic relationships. And we never ask myself any permission. Is it okay, Veda, that you can, you be in this toxic relationship? I've never asked myself. When we wake up in the middle of the night to have some ice cream in the summer and torture the body, have we asked ourselves, hey Veda, is it okay if I have some ice cream? It's only midnight. So this is why forgiveness is very hard. But once we start learning to practice and live this day to day, asking permission and being kind to ourselves and being loving towards ourselves and forgiving our mistakes that we have made. We have made so many mistakes. We forgive ourselves. I look at Kamala Devi. Her health is not good. But for 35 years, she gave her life and blood and everything for the service of others. Every drop of her blood and sweat and tears has gone for the service of others. But my question would be, did you ever ask yourself and get permission? When we don't take permission and we just keep doing and doing and doing for others, what we're doing is self-destructing. And it's not fair to self-destruct. So therefore, Olivia, it is extremely vital that we go through this process. It is a lifestyle that we live of forgiveness, getting permission to do the right, to do whatever we're doing. We always seek permission. Then we can actually live a conscious, high quality life.